I swear, the amount of times that I've had to re-record this intro, if the people that live above me can actually hear this, they must think that I'm just as illiterate as it comes. Uh, hey everybody, how you doing there tonight? For those of you that don't know me, my name is Patrick DeMarchi. I am reaching you here once again from my studio, office. I don't know why I said studio. Because there's a camera. That's why it feels like a studio. There's more microphones and cameras than there are pens right now. Behind me is my whiteboard where I work on my stand-up comedy. Over here, I've got some storyboarding that I'm doing, some art nonsense. More importantly, the books that are stacked up holding this laptop right now are actually written by me. Got a few more coming. But what I'm here to talk to you about is the referendum here in Virginia taking place on April 21st. That is the actual voting day and the final day to vote. It is going to be asking a yes or no. And I'm here to speak to you about why I stuck with my decision to vote no, why I think you should, and what I believe that this means for some of the futures of the state. Anyways, I got to get done with voting a little bit earlier, actually. I was hoping to do this right afterward, but then when I went to go do it, apparently the thing wasn't open till 1. It was a whole big deal. Anyways, so I'm going to reiterate a few things. When I did my last video, the main points that I made were about the numbers, which I think are actually still the more important things, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about the future that this can bring. So Virginia right now is a roughly 50-50 state. It'll go anywhere from 46% to 52% from one side to another. It has a congressional map that has a 6-5 split, which pretty well represents the 46-48% on the Republican side, and then the 52% or so on the Democrat side. And when I say on one side or the other, that will represent the results in the 2024 election. So at the moment now, we have a pretty much, down the middle presidential, down the middle congressional, and it pretty much represents the amount of voters and registered on either party in the state, which I think actually matters because of this. When I go to somewhere like Texas, I have a pretty good idea about what kind of politics I'm surrounded by. When I go to California, pretty good idea about what kind of politics I'm surrounded by. However, those are just merely perceptions, because at the end of the day, I know people from both sides that live in both states. I know some people that would call themselves independents that live in both states. Importantly so would be that if you go to California and you're a Republican, you basically look at it as like, man, my vote doesn't matter. Why do I even try? Which is interesting because something that many people probably don't know is that California has more registered Republicans than any state in the entire country. Now, they currently only represent 25% of that political landscape. Nonetheless, it is the most out of anywhere. And in Texas, you don't exactly have the same number of Democrats that are in there as far as California would go. However, if you're a Democrat there, you probably feel like your vote doesn't count in the same manner, okay? And that is a shame. That's just a shame on every level. And here in Virginia, we are now allowing a vote that could then create that same situation currently for the Republican side, but faces the ability to have it happen really a little bit of anywhere. Because we are creating a standard that is okay. You are now changing the idea of the political landscape within the state without actually changing the landscape. Because this is not the reality of the people who currently live here. This is just the reality of what the state legislature wishes that it could do. And that is where I find this to be a problem, because this goes against actually the will of the people. Because this is now a way to disenfranchise at least 1.2 million voters from one particular party. I don't see how this is not completely directed against a particular party. And that's another thing that brings me to a problem. So right now what we have here in the country is referred to as a trifecta. And the trifecta is where the presidential party is also the party of the Congress, and a leaning, conservative situation in the court. Now, the annoying part about this is that we keep hearing about this as if it's some random anomaly. Since 1857, you have had a trifecta in the government 48 different times. 25 of those were Republican, 23 of those were Democrat. So this is not the first time by any means. This has actually happened in my lifetime. I want to say 7 or 8 times. Now, my lifetime is also one of the first times that we've really seen elections that were, I guess, felt contested, perhaps. However, it's only really been at the presidential levels, and that was more of in Florida back when I was younger, they were talking about whether we had hanging chads or if a punch had gone through between, Gore and Bush, and that did, obviously have real consequences, one way or another, however you want to look at it. But that was really the only time. And then since 2016, 2020, we've had questions on, from many sides, is there interference from one way or another? Is that interference internal, external? Is it governmental? Is it all that? Okay. Those have been topics, but I would not say that that's been a rich part of conversation prior to about 3 elections ago. However, the one thing that we don't have is any person in Congress right now who had an election that I would say was corrupt and or falsified. We don't have a Senate that we have that issue in. In fact, at the moment, there was no legal challenges on a large level. So I hate to say on a large level. I'm saying that because I can't confirm that there wasn't somebody who sued against something somewhere. But what I do know is there's not some scandal about how our Congress was elected or about how our Senate was elected. Now, the point of that is to say, so what I'm going to show you right here is the Almanac of American Politics from 2024 by the National Journal and the CBIS. Don't remember who that is, but you can see it right here. The point of that is to show you that every member of this Congress, every member of the Senate, was elected fairly, which is why I have a big problem with what's going to happen if this goes through. This is one party currently kind of throwing a tantrum and saying, we're mad we didn't win the presidential election. We're mad that we don't have the power that we want. And instead of just waiting for the redistricting to be redrawn, as we've agreed to, we're going to do it early. And we're going to do it in a specific manner that purposely discredits and takes away the voice and the vote of these 1.2 million people over here. And I'd find that wrong no matter who is doing it, okay? Now, Texas went through and did some redistricting. However, it also wasn't against their constitution. Here in Virginia, they're asking for permission to break the rules. They're like, hey, we know that we're not like a corrupt state and, we usually follow rules. We'd actually like you to change that for a moment because we want to go and gain back some power that actually subverts the will of the people as it was previously decided in the state. That's really the thing about this that is bothering me the most, is that Donald Trump was elected, Congress was elected, Senate and the House, all elected on fair bases. In fact, Donald Trump won the Electoral College and the popular vote on this way around. So now to then go and figure out ways to go against that, but use the legislature in order to do so, to me, that sounds like what should be labeled as legislative subversion. Okay? You're subverting the previously chosen will of the people early and trying to find ways to cheat further down the line. I don't see where that's not corrupt. I can't see where that's not gerrymandering. I can't see where that's not wrong. And I can't see where that's trying to use literally tricking people through fancy language like restore fairness to go and then create new rules. To go and then here's what will happen. They just want to go and tie up the Congress with impeaching Trump for the next 2 years. So essentially, instead of actually having the president who was elected be able to do whatever it is he's trying to do, you're saying that instead you'd like to actually just go and cheat legislatively to stall all of that because, again, you're not happy. That's the thing that bothers me about this. They're just not happy that the voters who did what they did chose who they chose. So then they need to find a way to make sure that their vote doesn't matter. That's really what this is. The candidates that you're picking, they're not happy with that. They don't really want that to keep going on. Clearly, they think that you're not really apt enough to make decisions. So they need to take away your ability to actually matter. And they can only do that by having you give them permission to do so. And that's, it's wrong. And it makes me bothered because whenever I mention this now, I find that I'm not actually getting people telling me that this is wrong. They're saying we need to do wrong at the moment. And so it makes me wonder, well, what more wrong will you be willing to do in further moments? What am I going to have to worry about years from now? I don't know that I want to give I don't want to give more power to a party who all they have is one focus, and that is just to go and, get this guy who was elected out of office. I didn't see this same group doing this when the president who was in office was clearly senile, clearly should not be running for re-election. And instead, all I would hear was, all that matters is that we win. That sentence was said to me so many times. And it's really, really bothersome because what it is just blatant dishonesty on every level. It was irresponsible. If that was my grandma, that was one of my grandparents, I would have said, what are you doing giving them this is wild. This is absolutely wild. It was just absolutely crazy. I know that I'm repeating myself now. I know that the things that I'm saying are just kind of blah, blah, blah. We're just preaching to the choir if you're still listening, I'm sure. But I can't find any reason that I should support a party whose specific goal is to subvert the will of the people. It is a tantrum. That is all this is. This is a complete tantrum being thrown, and this is us just saying, hey, we actually don't care about morals, we don't care about ethics, and the real big shame about this is that the Democrats are more than likely just going to win the seat. They're going to flip enough seats in the House and the Senate and the Congress and all that they'll probably be able to do what they wanted to do anyway. But it's just that they want a little bit more power, and I just find that disturbing. I find that disturbing no matter who is doing it. You know what, actually? So as someone who drives in Northern Virginia on a regular basis, I wouldn't have to often tell you, do as the Marylanders do. But Maryland actually rejected a redistricting referendum in their state yesterday or the other day. So, good on them. And please do the same here in Virginia. I don't think that the Shenandoah Valley and that whole region should be broken up. I don't think that really anywhere should be broken up if it means disenfranchising 1.2 million voters. Voters who currently actually have all the things that they've, wanted, I suppose, within their elections. They, as voters, deserve to actually have those people representing them. They've chosen it that way. We in Virginia chose to have bipartisan lines drawn because we are a bipartisan state. We are a state that has a nearly 50% split of either political party. That is almost unheard of. And we are asking now to change that, okay? And we are asking now to create a state where many of the voters will just sit there and say, you know what? Why do I try? My vote doesn't matter. You are creating a mood of apathy amongst people. None of that is healthy. None of that is good. None of that is honest. So, yeah, I've probably gone on. I've probably missed some points. I've probably said some things that I, shouldn't say. But at the end of the day, and I guess if we're going to say that, I would argue this, and this is probably my least popular opinion at the moment. What is happening at the moment is more of an insurrection than January 6th was. And that's not to take away from the seriousness of, people trying to storm the Capitol and do things that they shouldn't be doing. But this one actually has permanent effects. You are giving more and more power to an actual legislature. Nothing about that is in any way legitimate. That is subversion, okay? That is an attempt at using the state to then go and insurrect against the current city government, the entirety of it. And now there are talks now, and I would have to do another episode about this more because we need to talk about the Electoral College in a much greater capacity. But the idea that certain states would bond with other states and then decide that they're going to give their votes in a manner that goes with what they want if it all links in together, that again is subversion. That is going against the government as we have decided to establish it. So forgive me if you've had to listen to me slip up over my words a few times here, but honestly, I'm just not going to go and re-record this for the 19th, 20th time. Anyways, I guess I've hit all my points. I would urge you to vote no, and I guess that's it. The other thing is I would really wonder, why is it that $100+ million is being spent by one side, particularly on this? And that's because it matters that much to them. It is just a complete power grab. The same way that you look at any lobbying effect in the government and say, oh, wow, why is all that money being put there? Well, it looks like that probably means that somebody is going to be getting a great deal of rewards out of this. Let's see. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. If you'd like to talk to me about this, if you have anything that you want to dispute, if anything that I said was factually inaccurate, please tell me. I'm more than happy to discuss any of that. If you don't like what I said just because it doesn't fit the, political future that you want, totally understand, totally respect that. I live in a state surrounded by at least half of the people that can agree or disagree with me. That's a whole stupid concept anyway, because I'm sitting here talking, and what really sucks is that if you listen to me long enough, you would probably just assume oh man, this guy must, just love what's going on in the world, love the Trump situation, love all that. And please go read something I wrote almost 10 years ago now, where it was 11 pages about how I thought that it was ridiculous. Any president after Trump would always be a president after Trump. It kind of messed up the institution. Tons of things that I am not a fan of, haven't been a fan of, still not a fan of. The divisiveness, the language, the rhetoric, all these other things, okay? That doesn't take away from the fact that I saw that administration was, at the very least, an unfortunate alternative to one that I saw that was putting together and putting forth a candidacy that was just completely illegitimate, and just lying to my face about it the entire time. And not only that, at times just telling me to shut up about the fact that I would even speak upon it. That combination of things for somebody who likes to go up on stage and tell jokes and shoot the shit forever, like, not cool. That from someone who is also, or to someone who is also just an American, also, no. Like, that is what we do here. We sit here and we tell you to your face that you're wrong about something or that something is just ridiculous. And there's nothing wrong with that. I would encourage you to do that more and more, which is why, again, I reiterate, if you have a point against me here that you find to be valid, that is an argument where it says, hey, Patrick, you lied about this. Because something that I heard around here in regards to something I said was that I was stirring emotions to spread falsehoods. At the end of the day, I don't have a falsehood that I can find in any of the numbers and any of the stats and any of the things that I spewed out over the last 2 videos regarding this. They don't like it. They might not want where this world is going. They might not like all these types of things. But what that means is that they don't like the will of the people of our country. That's just what happened. That is the direction that they decided to go into. That is something that the voters decided upon. That is why we have elections. And there's just no world where I can understand how that anything that goes against that is not now kind of subverting the will of the people. So please, yeah, if you like this, if you care about this, go and vote. Otherwise, I promise I will not always be talking heatedly about politics or this type of nonsense. I got plenty more. I have so many thoughts about artificial intelligence at the moment. Like, that's really one of the sad things, is that we're all voting and talking and arguing about this nonsense. And at the end of the day, if we don't get a grip on some of the things that we're doing with technology, and I mean that from a point of view of, 1, understanding it, 2, having some controls on it, 3, also not slowing it down. We need to totally let some of these things excel forward. There's a great future ahead of us in many ways. But people need to be mentally prepared for what can possibly happen. So yeah, there are so many great changes that could be coming in great, and I mean in a grandiose manner, and then great in a good manner. Opinions can vary on how we view what might happen. Nonetheless, we need to make sure that at the end of the day, we are considering electing people who understand these things, that we are actually considering, do we have people that are going into office that have a firm understanding of what these technologies can be? What future is beholden to us. What future is ahead of us, not beholden to us. That makes no sense. Nothing is beholden to you as far as the future is concerned. Anywho, I'm going to continue. I'm going to stop rambling, and I'm going to say one final thing. Because I did mention voting and, candidates and all that. There is actually a way that this whole 10-to-1 seat ratio could happen in Virginia. And it's the way that kind of every election is supposed to be happening. And that is, put forth better candidates. There's a solution. And it's pretty damning that in a state of, like, I don't know, 10, 11, 13 million, I don't know how many million people we got, a lot of million people. You can't find 4 better candidates. You can't find 4 people that you want to run that represent the ideas, that represent the party, that would just be winnable. Like, that's what's crazy to me. I can only think of one. There's 2 districts that would be. One is unwinnable, probably. The other one would be very difficult. The rest can totally be taken away. Okay? And that's what's just another but that's what's infuriating, is that there is a solution to not winning elections, and that is put forth better candidates, not break the rules, not cheat, not rewrite the rules, not go through and figure out, how can I trick the entire populace to actually vote for my ability to then go through and do this? So, anywho, vote no if you like this. If you think anybody would give a damn about this, one way or another, share it with them, please. Send it along. Just don't make me record this again. I haven't had any water in at least an hour and a half, and I can't do it. So, anyways, thank you for listening. Try not to hate me, and yeah, talk to you later.